So we're here with Devenee for episode 6 of the podcast by Devenee. How's your day going today?
It is fabulous. I've been up since 3. I've had lots and lots of caffeine, so my day is rocking.
Do we have any special guests?
We do. We have a very special guest today. Today we have Lindsey Smith. She is the original Food Mood Girl. She's right here from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She is now the founder and creator of the Wild Rose Collective. She is an inspirational female ladypreneur. She's a foodie and super, super interesting.
Ladypreneur.
She is.
This is a new word. I've never heard this before.
I mean, she's my girl.
Okay. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you forgot dog mom.
Oh, yes. And she's like me. She's obsessed.
Well, we're already pulling a denarius right now because there's a little coffee cup on the table. And, there's no branding, though, so I appreciate the way we're going about this.
You're welcome. I thought of that.
So the Food Mood blog?
The Food Mood Girl.
So what is that?
So 10 years ago, I started the Food Mood Girl, and it stemmed from my own personal experience of struggling with anxiety as a kid. And I tried all different types of healing modalities as a child, but what worked for me was changing the way I ate and looking at food as just a part of this kind of food and mood relationship. And so in 2009, I started Food Mood Girl to really share my story, and I wrote my first book, and that launched me into obsession with book writing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that led me into kind of the path that I'm in now with publishing and also the Wild Rose Collective.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What is the Wild Rose Collective?
So I co-founded it with my friend Kelsey Kogel, and she is a food stylist, and I met her through my last book, Eat Your Feelings, because I brought her on to style the book because it's a cookbook. And we just really hit it off, became really good friends. She's also a crazy dog mom. That's pretty much, as soon as we saw dogs at the coffee shop when we were meeting, and we just stopped talking to each other and we're like, dogs, and just pet them, I was like, she's hired.
Devenee did the same thing with me, except instead of petting a dog, it was Sean petting me.
And I was like, yes, you're hired.
Exactly. We just hit it off, and we saw this need of wanting to share women's stories, but in a way that infused women in history, like people of the past, and how can we learn from other women to inspire other women. And selfishly, how can we also learn? Because we wanted to kind of educate ourselves on certain issues or topics, and how can we bring people in that are knowledgeable about those things? So we host events, we are creating products, and just creating a safe space for people to share their stories.
So it's like a platform for people to hear about women that have overcome obstacles and kind of found their area of success.
Yeah, and we're also trying to create interesting conversations about topics. For example, we haven't announced this yet, but I will, for people listening, you're the first to know. We'll be announcing it within the next couple weeks, but we're doing a Wellness Disruptors Conference in the fall to highlight people disrupting the industry, but also highlighting how we can make wellness more accessible. What does that look like? And selfishly, I'm learning a lot in the process. There's things that I didn't know as, a food blogger, as someone that talks about these issues, things that maybe I should be more aware of or know to do better in this space.
Dev, have you been to any of these events?
I actually spoke at the International Women's Day event that they had.
Yeah, you're definitely a wild rose. There's no question about that one.
I'm wild, all right.
So is there a Facebook group for all of the different wild roses? Like, do they interact with each other?
So we're actually not on Facebook, believe it or not.
Okay.
But we're on Instagram.
Okay, very millennial. Okay.
Yeah. We keep going back and forth whether or not we're going to get a Facebook, because I'm one of those people that if I do something, I want to do it right, and I just feel like there's a million other things I could be doing. But one of the things that I've loved is just the in-person connection. That's really where I feel like I personally thrive. I'm not so much. Obviously, I have social media, but I've just found that these in-person events and the people that we've been able to bring to them have just been truly incredible. I've personally learned so much. Like selfishly, I say that I created this because I just want to learn, you know.
Yeah, but they're great events, right? You get to become inspired by the stories of all these women, and all their stories are different. And it's not always, hey, I have a business and I'm selling products to people. Some of these businesses that people have built have been on their life struggles. And, for example, there was a few women where their life was centered around, coming from a third world country. They sold drugs to survive. They took that and turned it into a business where they now empower women, strengthen women, educate women on how to not struggle within those confines, and how to raise your kids properly and build a life. And they're there to support them and educate them, and and so many things in between. So people like me who create products and sell products, and women who are just so inspiring, or really take hard times in their life and turn it into something so positive, and then put that positivity out there to say, how can I help you? It was really just, it's really, really a great inspirational group of women who are in that.
And we also had, at the conference, the Rising Women Conference specifically, we also had a chamber ensemble, all-female chamber ensemble, perform. And we also had a Native American group perform their original dances and chants. And so I think it's also really a way to kind of reach your hand across the aisle and say, like, hey, I want to learn about, like, I knew nothing about chamber music. I'm like,
what is chamber music? I know nothing.
Like violin and bass.
Yeah.
And, think of like the orchestra,
Yeah. But it also gives them a really great space for people to ask questions, right? So, one of the big differences between men and women, or women, I think, sometimes have a really hard time with small talk, right? And they can't just walk up to someone and just say, like, shoot the breeze and say, hey, how about, those 49ers last week, right?
That's your example.
Right? That's my example.
We're in Pittsburgh. You got to say Steelers.
Whatever. So, they have a harder time with small talk, most women. And, and I think a lot of times, the expectations for business make women uncomfortable, and they don't feel as confident as maybe men do. And so it kind of gives an opportunity to people who have questions that might be silly, or they feel embarrassed to ask because they might be so simple, and maybe they just don't know the answer. But it's a safe platform for women to start getting those experiences, asking questions, becoming more confident, and learning from all of these other women who have witnessed things or already experienced part of those within their business growth.
Mm-hmm. Another example of this is I just started doing stand-up.
Okay.
Stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Right?
That's like every Wednesday here at the office with Devenee.
And by starting to do stand-up, I did it once, and now I think, I should have a Netflix special.
Like you were at Hambones and
well, I did a class.
Okay.
And then we performed, but I've wanted to do it for years. I've thought about it because I do a lot of public speaking with my books. My books are written in a humorous tone, and I'm like, I feel like I would really like this. And I want to learn the writing style of it. But to be honest, I was intimidated because I don't drink, and I don't really want to go to bars at 9, 10. I'm like, I'm in bed by then. Like, I don't want to go to a bar at 9 or 10 o'clock at night to perform stand-up. And so I never did it. And I thought about that. So I took this class, and there was my class. I was fortunate enough that it was mainly all women. There was like 2 guys in it. And I became friends with these women, and now we've started just getting together and like writing together and, giving each other feedback. But we were like, hey, what if the Wild Rose maybe did stand up, like open mic on a Sunday brunch type of thing for women? And that way, women who maybe have thought about doing stand up or have been like, oh, I'd like to do that, don't feel as intimidated, because I did, for years I wanted to do it, but I was like, I don't want to go to a bar. I don't even drink with a room full of men judging me on my jokes, and they're probably not thinking they're funny because they're not able to relate or whatever it was. And And so just creating a space like that so that more people can try something new and be creative. It's not like, you know,
And it breaks that barrier of being able to talk in front of people and making eye contact and feeling confident and, you know, that kind of stuff.
So do men go to these events, or is it strictly women only?
It's anyone that's female identifying.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about platforms. So, you know, you created this great platform for people to share their stories, but I also know that you're a publisher. And so there's lots of books and stories that are out there for people to share. So, I mean,
Well,
it's pretty.
Lindsay's also, just so you know, she's also an author.
Oh, okay.
You know, she's written quite a few.
She's also a dog mom, just in case anyone
In
forgot.
case anyone forgot. Her name's Winnie Cooper.
Okay, so I guess most people don't know this, right? But I think it's like over 80% of Americans say that they have a story in them and that they want to write a book, right? But I think it's less than 300,000 Americans that have actually written a book. So, I mean, we're talking about like 0.15% of the population. So what do you think holds people back from writing a book to share their story?
I think a couple things. I think one of the biggest things is fear of putting something out there. I think that holds a lot of people back. I know working with a lot of authors, the one thing they say is they're always a fear of this judgment. Like, oh, what if, you know, I want to talk about this part of my story, but like, what if this person reads it, or what if this person sees it? And so that tends to hold a lot of people back. The other thing, sometimes when working with people, you realize that they're actually not over what they want to write about, and so it becomes very traumatic for them, so they're like reliving that trauma. And then I think a lot of people aren't, and then there's like another category of people that want it but don't want it that bad that they don't want to do the work. You know, like I think of you all the time, Devenee, because like creating this company that you've created, I'm like, how, like you have to be committed. I mean, you have to love protein powder. Like you have to love it. You know, you have to be
I mean, I am a protein girl.
Yeah, you have to be all in for it. You have to want to do it, and you have to want to put in the work. And like if you came to me and was like, "Oh, I want to, you know, I'm like, "Oh, I want to do a Food Mood Girl protein powder." I would get to like step 1 and be like, "Nah, not really." But like a book for me, I was like, I want to do this, and then I committed because my energy, my passion is there. And I think a lot of people like the idea of having a book and sharing their story, but once they get to like, oh, I have to actually write it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, I would think the biggest barrier is they have a want and a desire, and they see the end result of people who write books, and they want that end result. They don't realize how much work is put into actually writing a book, or the creativity you need to put the words on the paper.
So let's break it down. Like, how does someone actually like write a book, get it published? How does that process work?
So another thing I think that people have, publishing is one of those industries that people still have this weird fantasy land about. People are like, oh, like to be a published, like it's just this like, oh, to be a published author and to get the, like they just think that once you do that, you're set for life. And I'm like, you do realize most authors still work full-time jobs. Like it's not this, you know, you reach this destination and then you're good for life. So that's one thing. But writing a book, the nice thing now, in today's day and age, self-publishing is a huge way for people, you know, to get their work out there in a faster way than traditional publishing. Because before, traditional publishing was, you know, they are the gatekeepers of information, and they're the ones that controlled what was out there into the world. But once people started self-publishing, it opened up a lot. Now traditional publishers are competing with people that are succeeding in self-publishing. And so if you want to get your book out there, there are two different ways. You could go the self-publishing route or try traditional self-publishing. There's a lot of great resources. There's KDP, Ingram Spark. Those are kind of two self-publishers that you can use. And you know, you can self-publish for free. You can self-publish for, you know, you can spend all the money in the world that you want to get it right. But those are some nice options. And then traditional publishing, that's where you would seek out a literary agent. You know, you get a book proposal or complete your manuscript, and then you seek out a literary agent to represent your work. And then that person then pitches you to traditional publishers and tries to get you, you know, a book deal. So there's those two different ways. But the nice thing is there's an entry point for anyone. If you're someone that doesn't have a huge following and you don't think traditional publishing scares you and you're like, that's too much work, or that's too much, not even too much work, but that's just like not where I'm at yet, then you can self-publish. And
so how do people find an agent?
Well, we host a conference every year in Pittsburgh called Pitch, Publish, Promote, and shameless plug there. And we bring in literary agents and publishers, and you can pitch your work too. There's also online resources like Manuscript Wishlist. You can just do a Google search for agents. Really, it is a challenging process to find an agent. You have to really have your proposal, your manuscript, like down to a T. You write a query letter. Essentially, it's a pitch letter like, hey, this is my book. This is who I am. This is why you should represent me. And but even that is, that's kind of gate one that you get through. And then from there, then your agent pitches you to publishers. So that's like gate two, so it's a multi-step process. That's for someone that really, really like for fiction, I would recommend that's something, to go with, because fiction writers tend to, go the agent route. And nonfiction, it is about platform, but it's also, if you have a really good idea that's not been done before, or there's an opening in the market for it, they won't look as much as at your platform if they feel it's a really solid idea.
So what's one piece of advice for someone who has a story, maybe wrote it already? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they've written it. What piece of advice would you give them to get their story out there?
So I think, just getting clear on their goals. I always ask anyone before they want to publish, what's your beyond the book goal? And then that dictates, I think, which route you should go, because you need to get clear with that. So for example, if this person that just wrote a book, they're like, I just want to get it out there. My goal is to give this to my children. Well, then why would they seek an agent? Like, why would they go that route? Some people just want their story for their kids and they want to write it for their kids. So if they know that's their goal, then they can take the steps. And I think most people, what I found is they don't actually get clear on that goal until they're like some sort of step in on the process. And then when you help them with that goal, it's like, oh,
they see the vision.
They see the vision and they're like, okay, self-publishing makes sense for me because I want to get this story out there in a fast way and I want it to leverage my platform. I want to do speaking events. That's why I wrote my first book. And then my last book, I was like, I've been 10 years into Food Mood Girl. I've built this platform and I feel that this specific book needs the help of a publisher. So I decided to go and seek an agent and, did all of that for that book.
And that book is doing really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It just translated. It just launched in Brazil this week.
Oh, wow.
In Portuguese, which is really exciting. So that each of my books had a different goal, and that's what people need to realize.
Because it does change,
And it's okay to want to self-publish, go with a small publisher, try to get an agent. Any of that is okay. People have there's not as much of a stigma, but people did have a stigma that if you self-publish, you're not a real author. And that's just...
Things have changed.
Things have changed. Yeah. That's not the way it is anymore.
No.
Okay, so with the understanding that sometimes you need help to figure out where you're going to get to the next step, let's talk about mentorship, especially when it comes to women finding other women to mentor them. Do you feel like today's young women have strong mentors that they can easily find? Or do you feel like we need new female mentors to step up and start guiding the young women of today?
You want me to go?
You go first. Yeah.
Sure. So I think...
I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
In this day and age still, I think women of all ages have a hard time finding a mentor. I think if you were to put 100 women in a room, 95 would say the first question that they would whisper to themselves, or maybe one person says out loud and they all follow through, is, well, how do I find a mentor? Women weren't always the aspiring CEOs and the powerhouses and the strong women, and they weren't there. I mean, the last 10, 15 years, there's just been a huge change, right? In the past 5 years, there's been such a great change. And I think it's still new for women to say, I want a female mentor, or I need to be inspired. So I think it's still a difficult question that people don't ask. It's one of those ones they feel silly asking, of how do you find one? And there's a few things, right? I think if younger women sat down and said, what women inspire me? Who inspires me? And they make a list, right? And it doesn't matter who it is. It could be Martha Stewart. It could be Oprah. It could be, Katie Couric. It could be me, right? It could be someone from my level. It could be women from all different types of levels and different types of businesses or reasons on why they do. And I think if they started following them and they maybe reached out to their team and asked questions, or, at least were inspired by what these women do on a daily basis, or how they quote, or how they talk, or they follow them when they talk, and they do seminars or anything there, it helps them. And I do feel that if they looked out and kind of said, who's in my backyard, like who's in our area, who's in Pittsburgh, who's whatever area that they're from, who owns a business, and they're able to reach out to those women and, start a relationship, just say, can you meet me for a cup of coffee? And if everyone just started a relationship and opened those doors, they would get a lot of free help. The biggest thing is, if someone's going to sit there and not give you the attention, and it could be either side, right? The mentor or the mentee. If they're not going to pay attention or give you what you want, they're probably not the right fit for you. But starting that relationship and starting talking together really, really does help open the doors, because people like me, I would love to help. I would love to help young women. Why would they want? I don't want anyone to have to follow the footsteps that I did and go through all the struggles. It's like with my kids. Here's everything I experienced. Here's the booklet. This is up to age 18. Every time I yelled at you,
Devenee's cheat sheet.
Right. My cheat sheet. I've drilled into your head of what not to do, because I've done it already. You're supposed to learn from that, drink it all in, and then take that information and bypass all the bad, get all the good out of it, and build yourself. So it's almost like I would love to give them that leg up of experience, right? Mm-hmm. But I think people, they feel intimidated, and they sit back and say, well, how do I contact her? Is it okay to reach her on social media? Do I just reach out? And I think that's where the barrier starts, is right at the beginning. They don't know how to find, or they feel like they aren't able to reach out.
I think a lot of people are afraid to ask,
Mm-hmm.
For anything. I find that all the time, because so many instances in my own life, there people are like, oh, how did you do that? And I'm like, I just literally asked. That's it. It's literally nothing over the top. I didn't do anything. I just asked. I think that. I also think being one of the things that I find as I'm kind of growing my own business and businesses is I find mentors in all ages, all
Mm-hmm.
types, all, we just had at the Rising Women Conference, there's this young woman, Ev, and she is 18, and she inspires the heck out of me.
She's amazing.
She's so amazing. She's so insightful. I hit it off with her, and I've learned so much from her that I'm like, wow. And I told her, let me know what you need. I know she's building a speaking career. I'm like, let me know how I can help you. But at the same time, I feel like even chatting with her, it's such a mutual, you just learn so much as well. We also had this young woman come to some of our events, and she simply reached out and said, hey, I'm in college. I want to come to the Rising Women. I just found out about it. It looks amazing. Do you have a college discount code or something? And I'm like, oh, wow. First of all, I didn't even think of that, which for next year, we're going to have a college discount code. But I didn't even think of that. And I was like, well, I don't, but I do now. And here you go, because I appreciated her asking. And then she came to the conference, and she came up to me and was like, she just was so energized. And I was like, I need some of that fresh energy. I feel stale sometimes, because I'm like, she's just so wide-eyed about everything. And I told her, I'm like, I just love you coming to events. would you want, let's work something out. Maybe you could be an ambassador or like work with us somehow or do something. Like, let's just figure out a way, because I feel like you're even just you being here, breathing in fresh energy. But from us, she's like, how did you do it? How did you decide to do this? How did you? And I just see how it works both ways. And I think it's it's as simple and as hard as asking.
Yeah. And that's where it comes back to building that relationship with someone. And, it really is a two-way street. You inspire each other, you build upon each other. And, it's someone like me who's in my 40s, these younger kids, they are inspiring. They do some really, really great things. And I think it allows everyone to become more vocal and within their community, and to know, what is going on. And it's really, really good. So they just need to reach out. People just need to reach out either via message on social media and just say, I would love to have a cup of coffee, or do you ever have time to meet? Who do I call to schedule this?
I also think people make a mistake of looking at, celebrities and saying, oh, well, I want that, like that's what I want. But I think, or even looking at someone that's quote unquote successful and whatever that means to them at the moment. But I encourage people, like, look at someone's lifestyle. How are they living? Like, what type of life do you want? Because not everyone aspires, to have 100, I don't know how many employees you have, 110 employees. Not everyone aspires for that type of business. Like, I grew up with entrepreneurs and they have a team of like 4, and that's good. Team of 4 employees. That's like, that's their success. Like, they feel successful because that's what they created and what they wanted. And everyone has a different level. And I think what happens is we look at someone on social media and we're like, oh, wouldn't it be so great to have 100,000 followers like this person? They're
and then they get deflated.
Yeah.
Right. They get deflated. So when you go back and you're looking for those mentors and you're saying, who inspires me, a lot of times, picking people who are in your similar area, who have a similar skill set, but they're just on a different level. I mean, that's a good place to start, making that list of who those people are, maybe not so much of, who you want to be or who you think is so awesome, but you'll never get there, because that just kind of dampers the whole situation. But picking those individuals who understand your skill set, have the same skill sets, is a really, really good place to start.
Or even skill sets that you're hoping
to achieve,
so you can look at someone and say, oh, Lindsey writes books. Obviously I want to write a book that, she may be someone that could help me with that. Whereas I may look at someone, like, I'm all into wanting to learn more email strategy. So I'm like, who knows email? Like, I need to talk to you, because that's a skill set that I want to grow and I want to learn more and do better with. So even stuff like that. And then, being able to kind of lean on one another.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, definitely, we're so lucky to have Lindsey on the show today.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a lot of great information that both of you guys shared today.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so if people want to look you up, can you give out the Instagram handles for yourself and for the Wild Rose Collective?
Yes. So I am Lindsey Smith, Lindsey with an E, Lindsey, Smith, most common name, HHC. And then the Wild Rose Collective is just at the Wild Rose Co.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect. And I apologize for my deep and sexy voice today. Allergies are getting to me a little bit, so I'm usually not I'm usually high pitched,
So all I have to do is blow some pollen at you every day, and I get this regularly.
And you get this deep, sexy, yes.
Awesome. All right, that's all for today.